welcome to another episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azelina, I am Derek Gano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Today, we are jumping into our second interview as a part of our interview segments. If you missed the first interview with John Bisco, just look back a couple episodes. That would be episode 16, I believe, on YouTube, podcast platforms, and our Facebook page, Time Out Derek and Joe. Today, we are bringing on one Dan Villanti. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to listen, but even better to be here.
Joe?
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure to have my cousin Dan on here with us today. And I have to say that I'm looking forward to some of these answers that we're going to get from him, and also hopefully talk about the playoffs that just occurred yesterday. So got a lot of good things lined up here today.
Before we get started, I will say we probably should thank you, Dan, because if we really think about it, without you starting the Lehigh Valley High School Showcase, we might not even have this show right now, because that got us to talking about recapping that, and it went from there. So we'll be diving into that towards the end, but which will bring back some memories of the first episode. But so we'll start off in high school. Let's take you back, Dan. And while at Notre Dame Green Pond, by the way, all of us, for those that don't know, went to Notre Dame Green Pond. You played both basketball and baseball. You managed the varsity boys basketball team. Can you just talk about some of your favorite memories as a high school athlete, and some of the teammates you may have shared those 4 high school years with?
Yeah, I think going back to it, and when I talk to Joe, I think a lot of times we always go back to our Notre Dame days. And even this weekend, I was able to kind of reminisce a lot. Pat Boyle's son, Brendan Boyle, scored his 1,000th point, and he's a junior. And I actually was texting back and forth with Bobby Daly, because it just reminded me of the same night when Jeff Daly scored his 1,000th point, and how special it was for all of us to kind of be in the gym together. It's on YouTube, actually, his 1,000th point, and I was just watching it, and I'm like, man, I think some of the best memories that I had really are for some of the best people I've met in my life. Just so many good people that I still talk to today, share memories with and whatnot. But in reality, whether it's a coach, whether it's a teammate, whether it's, just a player, a lot of really, really cool memories at Notre Dame. Cool to share with the people who are still involved now. Pat obviously still being around, Mike Beddick still being around, staying close to those guys. I still on social media hear from some former teachers, back and forth. So it's just I think the community itself is just really what keeps me around there. So grateful for those times and being able to reminisce, that's for sure.
And I had to double check with someone before of the year. I ended up eventually being able to find it, but I remember even going to Pottsville, and I remember the run by the basketball team in 2004, where they went all the way to the state semifinals, ended up losing to Trinity. But you want to just talk about that really briefly and what that was like, because up until, I guess, just the baseball team, I believe it was 2 years ago, who made the state championship. It's been, I couldn't pull the date out if we've ever had a team that made the state finals, but it's been a long time. So what was that like for the team in 2004?
I think the cool thing about that was the Lehigh Valley has always been kind of a hotbed, but underrated as an area that has some really good players or really good teams. But back then, I think lately when they went to the 1A to 6A, where they kind of expanded the region, we've had some more teams be able to compete at the state level, where back then you had to be really, really talented to make a run in a state playoff. And I feel like that was the really neat thing about that run was when we were at Pottsville, I remember looking up and you had half of the Catasauqua basketball team there. you had Penardrell there, you had Wilson there, and you're like, these are some of the players that, you're going the rivalry games with, 3-4 weeks ago, but we got to the point where everybody was so happy to just say there's a team from the Lehigh Valley out here competing to get into the state, semifinal, state final. So I think that was one of my favorite memories, was just being able to kind of see just the whole Lehigh Valley get behind it and just take out, I like Notre Dame, or I like Becca, or I like, Penardrell. It really became, hey, we're the last standing Lehigh Valley team. And now it was like the whole community was getting behind us, which I thought, to me, that was one of the things that really pulled away from that run.
Yeah, it's almost like they're playing through you, almost.
Exactly right.
In order to play there. But I know now it's a lot more difficult, especially basketball, going through the Philly schools. So that it'll be a tough time for us to ever make it there again. But hopefully sometime in the future.
For sure.
All right, Dan. So we're going to go back again. We're going to bring you back to senior night in 2005. And when I wrote this question, I literally put myself in the Notre Dame gym that night of where I was sitting. And I can remember that at that time I sat there with your parents, Gina and Marianne, and my parents, Uncle Tom and Aunt Joe Marie. But anyway, you got the dress, which I know was special. And we watched you in the varsity game that night. If I recalled, you scored a couple points right away in that game. I'm not going to give away what you did. I want you to tell our listeners what you did. And then just how exciting was it for you, and how awesome was it to be on the court with some of your close friends and, just the team you watched, even in that season?
Yeah, I think it coming back to your point, Joe, and your mom still, by the way, makes my favorite salad. But
I love black olives.
I just remember, it was a fun kind of way. We went through the senior night ceremony. I had my shirt and tie on, walked out with my parents. We went down in the locker room, and they had, my sneakers, my jersey, everything out there. And and Pat Boyle was like, "Hey, you're playing tonight." And I was like, I'm playing. I was like, wow, I not anticipating that at all. My hope at that point was, all right, get me in the last 2 minutes of the first half, second half, let's build a lead. And in reality, we were playing Bangor, and they were actually pretty good. So it wasn't like, our team was really, really talented. We were ranked third in the state at that point. So, we were still, hoping to win. But at the same point, it got to the point where we went up, and Pat came up to me and was like, "You're starting." And I remember looking at it, and I'm like, well, I'm starting. We had multiple seniors. So I was like, who's not starting? And at that point, it was Chad Lilly who gave up his starting spot to allow me to start. And, I think when it really comes down to it, we were a really tight knit group from the year previous that we just talked about. We went to, the Eastern final. But it was we were just friends, at that point. I think we were talented because our group was just so close, as we did everything on the court the same way we did everything off the court. And Chad and Doug Weaver, talking with those guys, we literally stayed over each other's houses every single night during basketball season. Like it was just our group. Like that's who we were. We were so tight knit. It meant more to Chad for allowing me to play on senior night than him playing himself. And I feel like when you have so many selfless players together, something special can happen. It just happened that night. Was able to hit a couple threes, and but in reality, as much as I remember, shooting or remember being in the game, I more so remember just the friendships and the memories we all had together. It was just a fun kind of couple of months, and really a couple of years of being involved with those guys.
And just so the listeners know out there that don't know, Chad Lilly was one of the best players to come through Notre Dame, as he is an 1,000-point scorer. He actually went to me and Derek's alma mater in Easton Catholic Elementary School. So it was just, I got to see him grow up. I coached him, and he matured. He got to be a heck of a passer. But yeah, so Dan, that was that. And that's an interesting story, because I didn't know he sat that night. I don't know if I recalled that, but it was a great night all around, though. It was just, that was a lot of fun. I'll still, I still think about those times. But I do, Derek, do you have anything to add before I ask him question number 3?
Well, those were before my years, but
Right.
but I imagine that was around when my cousin was there too. John was, but he was I think he graduated 2004 then. But
So a year later. Yeah.
yeah, it's great to have that tight bond, and I guess that was probably brought even closer when you guys made it all the way to the state semifinals. Winning
Definitely.
will bring you closer too, as well, I'm sure.
And I feel like, I honestly, and like Joe, as you just said about how great Chad was, at the same point, if you look at, even looking at the NBA, looking at teams that are really good, Golden State, was so good, but I think they were so good because they had guys who were just willing to accept their role. Draymond Green accepts his role really well. Chad would have been the leading scorer in the league on any other team. And he scored under 1,100 points. And he was a 1,000-point scorer, but he could have scored 1,800 points at probably any other school, but he accepted his role. He was our best defensive player. He rebounded the ball well. He was our best passer, and he understood his role in allowing us to be successful. So I do think he was clearly one of the most talented players. I also think he was probably one of the most selfless players, and not selfish at all, which for us to go that far, you need somebody like that. So
that's very well put. And Coach Boyle had a great, like you said, a lot of talent there. So he made it all work too. We got to give him a lot of credit for all these years at Notre Dame too, as he's still, like you said, out there. So, well, we're gonna stay, of course, with Notre Dame, but this is gonna turn the table a little bit. You were an assistant boys basketball coach from 2010 to 2015, and then the assistant baseball coach from 2005 to 2017. I had the pleasure of coaching with you in 2009. That was a year I'll never forget. At that point, only 4 years after you graduated, you had the position of junior varsity baseball head coach at your alma mater. How much pride did you take in working with head coach Mike Beddix, who I know you call one of your very good friends, and friend of the show, I might add, and Pat Boyle, who's, again, another great friend. And then when did you realize you wanted to coach high school athletes, as you're still young at that point?
Yeah, total credit to Coach Beddix, to answer your last part, was him just inviting me to be around, a JV and a varsity baseball team at a young age. I was literally 18, so I'd played my last game basically in May on the varsity baseball team, and within a year, so that February, I was at winter workouts with Mike and his staff, and that was Mike's first year. So that he took the program over after I graduated, and I think for him it's really what has started building the culture around his program, and even Pat's program. They do such a good job of building a culture that just keeps you involved and keeps you around. I certainly got involved because I just wanted to help and be around those guys. They're mentors to me, friends to this day. But at the same point, I think you kind of find your niche as you go, and you gain some experience and gain some confidence. So, Mike and Pat both gave me an opportunity to kind of grow and learn under them, which kind of brought me to the coaching part. And it certainly felt right when I, just writing up a lineup and being able to make an impact. And I think that's where I started really realizing that coaching was something for me, is when I realized how much of an impact and how impressionable, teenagers and young athletes can be. And then realizing that, you can really help mold these guys into something special. So, it's more of an honor than I would say. It's something that, a lot of players thank me after a season. I'm like, man, it goes both ways, because you learn so much more about yourself when you're in that type of role like that. So grateful for those opportunities that Mike, Pat, all those guys have paved the way for me.
So we're going to move on to your college years here. I said I got my DeSales shirt here. It's a little snug. Got to lose some weight. As you went on to DeSales, you graduated with a sports management degree, and then you received your master's from Drexel in sports management. When did you decide that, and speaking for a lot of college kids who don't know what the heck they want to do, when did you decide that was the path you wanted to go down? And how has your education helped you so far in your professional career? Obviously, you're at DeSales right now.
Yeah. In reality, DeSales to me, it checked all the boxes. I was looking for a small school in that I could kind of succeed, build relationships with. I like the fact of knowing my professors, knowing other students who were in my classes. The class sizes were small. So to me, it kind of checked all those boxes as, hey, I think this is a place I could be successful. At the end of the day, though, it was a conversation with Scott Colville that made me realize that this was kind of the place I want to be able to go to. He offered me an opportunity to be a member of the men's basketball team through an assistant program, where I was even able to go recruiting with them, watch video with them, watch film, where it kind of gave me, okay, this is kind of the athletics portion, and now that's quote unquote the athlete portion. Now the student side, and how can I really grow as a student at DeSales? So I love the sports management aspect. It was something that obviously I was involved with in high school, but it kind of made me think on a granular level of what sports are about in a business, in a professional setting. Not so much like, I turn the TV on, watch sports, that isn't really just sports management. There's a lot that goes behind what you were watching on TV or what event we're attending. I learned a lot. Appreciate all the experiences I had. Was able to start my own business because of it. But as I think everybody realizes at some point, everything guides you on your journey, and sometimes there's detours and whatnot. But everything has led me back to DeSales. I had some great relationships there. I made some really, really big friendships in sports, but I realized, sports, you can make an impact in sports for sure and still have a professional career. So I'm now working in our alumni office at DeSales. I appreciate all the people who I've met throughout my time at DeSales, because I still, see them on campus today. So just lucky, to be honest with you. It's a place that I call home. I live 3 minutes away from it, but I call it home because, it makes me feel that way when I'm there.
And I know one of your good friends, Darnell Braswell, went to DeSales. I remember watching him. I also remember him from Allen, because my then 6th and 7th grade coach or teacher, Mike Kaminsky, was an assistant for Allen at the time. So I followed him and the Terrence Roderick team for a while.
Very good
and
team.
Now I see that he just got his first win at Allen. So Darnell Braswell, very, very good player. Hopefully just as good of a coach.
Yeah. Darnell was my college roommate. So, yeah. So, I'll say this, and Darnell, I know Darnell will do really well. He's as much of a teacher as he is a coach. It's the perfect fitting for him at Allen. He cares about it. It brings me back to the way I feel about Notre Dame or DeSales. That's the way he feels about Allen. He's made such an impact there. We joked around that was his first win, but first of so many, because I think just having the right guy in the right spot, might not be the most experienced, might not have the biggest name, but having the right fit is more important than sometimes it is, just getting, quote unquote, the right person. And I think he checked all those boxes. I think not only was he the right person, but he has the experience coaching. He was great at DeSales when he coached with us. But at the same point, I think there couldn't be a better guy to kind of pass on the torch. I mean, it's a storied program, so he's not taking over something that he has to rebuild. It's something that has always been good. Doug Snyder did a great job before him, but he's the perfect guy to take over.
Did he play with Ray Barbosa? Because I know that might be a little after, a little before, but I do know that he is now coaching at Executive Academy, the charter school. And I just think it's interesting that two guys from Allen that had such an influential part of that program are now coaching high school basketball. So just giving back to the communities. That's
how it should be, though. It honestly is how it should be. It's why Pat Boyle is still at Notre Dame and still successful. Like, I think when you're brought up in a culture that has brought you so much success, whether it's in high school, whether it's in college, and you can give that back, to me, the Lehigh Valley, it kind of creates, this area where you can succeed and you want to go back and give back. I'm sure Darnell can go be a Division III, Division II college coach right now. Like, with his resume, he could have done that right now. But I'm sure Pat Boyle could coach college right now too, and he's been offered to. But at the same point, I think it's where he can make the most impact, and it's where God kind of leads you to, hey, this is the right spot for you to make the biggest difference. Right. So, I think it worked out really well for those guys. Ray too.
Yeah, and obviously learning under Coach Koval, Dennis Census at Central Catholic. I know he was at too, and Coach Schneider. I'm sure he's going to be great there at Allen. So best of luck to Darnell.
Well, this comes now that I can't recall the year, like I said, but you coached with my brother Mike, your cousin Mike, in Palmer. I think it was Junior Legion, if I'm not mistaken. How was the experience coaching with, somebody that you were close growing up with, especially inseparable at times? And then, you saw that through. What has been some of the challenging moments also of your coaching career, and what has been a few of your favorite moments of your coaching career?
Yeah, going back and thinking about me and Mike coaching together, it's funny that really was Coach Freiler from Palmer Township gave Mike and I the opportunity to kind of have our team. It was the first time that we were literally in charge of a team, and I think it set everything up for my coaching journey, because in reality, I'm writing up, and I still have it. We're writing up like a handbook to hand out to the parents. Say, this is what the things that, our coaching philosophies, our goals. And I feel like at that point, it really is, it made it kind of real for me, where, we were able to draft players. I think that was my favorite point with Mike, is we had two teams in Palmer Township, and me and Mike are drafting a team versus, somebody else. And I think it was cool, because it was like, we think about like that fantasy type feel where like you're creating this lineup, and we were doing it live, and, we were 18. So it was like, it was just one of those things where I think for a moment it became kind of like, hey, coaching sounds fun. We're literally in charge of, 11 or 12-year-olds, I think they were at that time.
Yeah.
And their parents are looking to us to not only be coaches, but then be role models. Right. And I think that kind of leads me to what you said is, what's the best part, or my favorite memory is certainly the opportunity to kind of make such a difference. And when you hear about it, some coaches will tell you how grateful they are when a player, that you're coaching commits to a certain college or whatnot, which is totally great. But I think, that's just part of the process. But the end goal is really, how much of an impact have you put that person on for when they're off the field? What kind of person are they? And if they can come back to something that I taught them or something that they heard from me, then to me, that's called success. It's something that they become a better person off the field. Then, I feel like we did our job. But challenges do happen, right? So, I mean, being 18, you have your own challenges, to then, having, a wife and now kids and a family. It's certainly navigating, how you can have, some time and being able to put enough time into doing something at a high level. One of the things I always promised myself was, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it with 2 feet in and doing it at the highest level possible. So I think that's been one of the biggest things, is making sure that, we can at any level we can do it with 100%, effort from me. Because you can't ask your players to give you 100% effort if you're not putting that in, right?
Right. True. Very true. And I also have to say that I do remember during the Palmer Junior Legion coaching season, you guys coached a very talented shortstop, and then it ended up being quarterback Ian Hayden. So it's kind of, he went to Easton and played quarterback. So I just thought that was interesting too, that you guys had probably molded a kid there that, teachers do a good job, but we all know coaches are what these kids look up to. And, it's really interesting to just think about that. So I just, I had to ask that question though. And Michael will definitely love the answer.
Well, that'll move us into your time with as a director of the Rising Stars baseball program, which started off in 2016. First off, I do want you to talk to us a little bit about the Rising Stars program and what the mission was with creating the program. For those that don't know, tell us some advantages of playing travel baseball, maybe in comparison to what it used to be, and how important it is nowadays for athletes to get their talents out there for people to see.
Yeah. So the Rising Stars really started with, I ran a high school baseball showcase at Freemansburg in 2013, and made it super cheap and invited any Division 1, 2, 3 junior college that I could think of, from Connecticut down to, Virginia, and basically said, this is what we're doing. Anybody who wants to come out, we're not paying college coaches to come, but we're going to have 3 games. If you're a rising sophomore, then a game of just all those rising sophomores, a game of all rising juniors, and a game of all rising seniors. So I called it the Rising Stars, and it was hopefully leading up. It was games were at like 1, 4, and 7, leading up to the 7:00 game for those rising seniors, hopefully uncommitted, where they can just play. We played a 9-inning game at Freemansburg and invited as many people as we could and just said, showcase your abilities. There was no such thing, then of, exit velocity or 60-yard times or how hard do you throw. We didn't do any of that. All we did is let them play. And I left it open to the public. We sold out in like 3 hours. We had more guys than I would have ever anticipated. That night, I think we had 31 colleges who showed up, and it was just like, hey, this is a cool kind of setting. Beautiful night. The lights were on. So that night, one of the guys from rising seniors, one of those teams, came up to me like, well, what if we did, like, why don't we bring this team that we have right here and bring them to a tournament? I was like, there's 5 different travel programs being represented. This guy plays for here, this guy plays for there. It's never going to work. So I kind of let it go. The following year, we ran the event again, and kind of the same question came up, but now it was like the parents, the college coaches started saying like, hey, for one event, bring them all together and let's see what happens. So that's what kind of led to the program getting started. It was really cheap. We literally ran it, to try to get the kids an opportunity to be seen. I think one of the things that most people don't take away enough is the Lehigh Valley has some of the top level talent in the state of Pennsylvania. It's not, just Eastern PA, we have literally some of the best players in the EPC and the Colonial League specifically in the Lehigh Valley in every sport, and baseball more than people would ever realize. I think when you hear in basketball or football, like, this kid's going Division I, you're like, oh, I have to go see him. He must be really good. We have 27 Division I players in baseball in the last 2 years, but people don't. We have a kid going to Ohio State who's at Freedom right now. People don't know that. Like if you said in football, this kid's going to Ohio State, every single person, Terrell Pryor went to Ohio State. Everybody's flying out to Jeanette to go watch him play. We have a kid at Freedom who's going to Ohio State. Kids going to Michigan, kids going to Lehigh. Down south, we have guys. So, I mean, I don't think they get enough credit. And that's where I kind of wanted to make my mark as, hey, it's not about me. It's not about any of our coaches. It's really about the players coming together and throwing out what our area can be successful in doing. And we certainly have done that. I've totally built some amazing relationships with players, parents, things that you can never, ever trade in, the value of any dollar value for those friendships that, we've had. So certainly been a joyful experience, that's for sure.
Now, in our previous interview, we did talk about how it's important to not only have coaches who have a strong knowledge base, but to have guys who are going to be leaders of men. How rewarding is it to see some, and you've mentioned a couple of them, to see those athletes through their formative years and realize that you may have had a very important influence on their life going forward?
Yeah, I think, to me, that's the process. Like when we talk about like, hey, what's successful, in travel baseball, unlike high school baseball, it's basically playing a season in one weekend. You play 5 or 6 or 7 games, you win a championship, and by Monday, nobody knows if you won or lost. I don't know who won at this venue or that venue on Monday. I don't really care about it because the weekend's over. And then the following weekend, you start right up again. So I think for travel baseball, the ability to kind of create those relationships, but go through that process. I've gone to various college campuses with our players to kind of go through that recruiting, quote unquote, process with them. But you learn more about the person and how you can be a help outside of that. The best kind of conversations for me that I've ever had is, hey, I'm hurt, I can't play, but because you helped me get to this point, I feel like I can make a difference. Or I have guys who I coach who now coach with me, which I can't tell you if there's nothing more rewarding than writing a letter of recommendation for one of my former players to say it's a good person and he deserves a job, because I've seen him when the times come toughest. We're down 0-2 in an account in the 7th inning, and I see him being mature enough to take some pitches or get through on the mound when another team is screaming and shouting at him. Like, I think sports brings out a kind of an adverse part of our, mindset of how we can handle adversity future in the workplace. And it's overly rewarding to be able to kind of recommend some of our guys for jobs now, and seeing some guys, eventually getting engaged and getting married. It's overly rewarding to know that you had a very small part in molding that person to where they are today. So.
All right, Dan, the next question is definitely off the ball field, off the basketball court. I know you're close friends with Marco Andretti, another former graduate of Notre Dame High School. And I just was wondering, and to tell the audience, what of some of the sporting events you've been seen with him. Also, it's been well publicized of how great of a talented race car driver he is. What have been a few races that you've been to see him race?
Yeah, so I met Marco freshman year of high school. Awesome family just to be around. Not less about the successes, I guess you could call it, and more about just the people. A very, very tight knit family, which is always very nice to be around. But I mean, the thing with Marco is probably one of the most loyal people I've ever met. So I've learned a lot from him because, he's dealt with so much adversity and experiences, whether it's just because of his last name racing, and just who he was, quote unquote, is or was supposed to be. Immediately when you put a last name on somebody, you put a title and you put, I guess, expectations, and he's now targeted as, oh, this is what this is supposed to be. And but to me, he's the most down to earth, loyal kind of friend that we had. I was able to go through college and still remain very close with them. I went to the Indy 500, I think 5 times. It was 5 years in a row. I mean, what I think, for me, as we've talked before, I'm not a huge racing fan, and just not something I really grew up in. But when I'm a Marco fan and I'm a friend, and at that point it becomes real. Like, yeah. I find myself watching that more than I watch, my favorite baseball team or basketball team, because in reality, you don't really know those people. I know who Marco is. I was with him, on a daily basis sometimes. And I'm like, man, like it's a different feel. And it's like one of those things where, especially in a sport like racing, being somewhat dangerous, it's like, there's different emotions that kind of go into it. But, grateful for the experiences. I was able to kind of go and just see some of the ins and outs of what actually goes into the sport. Totally underestimated the work ethic that you need, and really the mentality that you need to take it so seriously, to be able to do some of the things that they do. And we went on some really fun trips together. But in reality, it's more so you lose the sense of being around an athlete, as much as you're just around your friends, and that's how he makes you feel. So he did come out with some announcement over the weekend that he is only going to be a part-time IndyCar driver this year. He will be doing the Indy 500. He's not going to be doing every IndyCar race. It's going to allow him to do a couple other races around in some different cars. So he'll be doing 24 hours of Daytona. He'll be doing Le Mans. It's pretty cool though. So and my favorite part about it is he's always created his own narrative. He's never, as much as his grandfather's been, Mario Andretti, his dad's Michael Andretti, he's willing to create his own legacy and his own narrative and follow his own journey. And I couldn't be more excited for that part of his career now, because he's able and capable of being successful in really whatever he does on the racetrack. So it's going to be really neat.
Real quick, do you think, and I know it's a tough question to answer, but, he's been so close at times to winning the big race And I know he's probably won races other than, of course, he hasn't been able to win Indy. Unfortunately, we all root for him in this area. We know that. But do you think he definitely breaks through and gets that Indy win? I know that's a tough question, but
No, it's not, because I guess if you believe something so much, the answer is easy, right?
yeah,
This is what I've learned about Indy. When I was there, everybody, they come out with the odds and oh, this guy's the heavy favorite, and it never works that way in
Yep.
IndyCar. It literally, to me, the track has always chosen its own winner, and there's it's the racing gods or whatever they want to call it, but to me, I think what happens there is always a special moment, and it's kind of like, hey, you're at the point. A lot of times it's somebody who's a veteran. Not many times it's just someone in their first or second race. Marco almost did it in the early years, but at the same point, I firmly believe he gets one. I believe it'll be something where maybe our timing or his timing, he would definitely hope to have one by now. But I also think they need Marco. The sport itself needs Marco to be successful because of who he is and what he's done for the sport. So I do think he gets one. I'm hoping it's this year, but I know when his mind is set on something, there's no greater person that can do it, and I know what he wants. So I firmly believe that.
Awesome to hear. All right, so this question is one of my favorites. I was searching a few months ago on YouTube and came across a channel you did with your now about 3-year-old son, Grayson, who I think we've heard a couple times now. He seems like he's having a fun day. It is called Coach and Player. For our listeners that don't know, what made you come up with this idea? And Grayson was young at the time. He was still crawling. How did you stay focused?
I'll say this, and to any soon to be dads or eventually parents, you realize very quickly that you'll do anything to entertain for as long as you can. So it just happened that we were just sitting there playing with a basketball one night. My wife was working Tuesday and Thursday nights, so those were like my nights. I get done with work, I'm home. It was just me and him at those days. So like, what could we do to entertain him? We got a basketball hoop when he was like 4 months old, and he just thought it was the coolest thing just to shoot hoops. And then it created its own kind of unique opportunity for us to have some fun, share it with friends. I mean, at the end of the day, I have a very tight network of friends from my high school friends and my college friends, and we would just joke around back and forth and make some fun and be able to share some time together. So the videos kind of were just something to do and have some fun with it. But certainly, I know some people, it was just funny hearing from other people sending them over, like, we saw this on YouTube. Totally hilarious. Like that. That's good.
Awesome. It was just awesome to watch, and just to watch him look at you at times and be like, this is just unreal. He seriously like did some of the stuff and check it out on YouTube. It's really good. Coach and Player, Dan Villanti. It is fun to watch.
Now, Dan, something I didn't know about, you're actually an executive board member for the Miracle League of the Lehigh Valley. I'm sure some people have heard of it. Do you want to talk to us, though, about your work with that organization and its importance?
Yeah. So, the Miracle League to me was, an opportunity where I had done some volunteering at the facility. So the Lehigh Valleys is in Schnecksville, and there's another Miracle League that's down in Easton by the Shrine Center. So they are different. There's just different quote unquote chapters. So the Lehigh Valley one, though, is, I just found it to be a very special place. Besides for the fact that the field and the atmosphere there is, it seems like it's something for the kids to realize that they're as much athletes as if you go to Citizens Bank Park, and there's a place for them to be successful and see themselves be successful in an open area. That for me, I love coaching. It's rewarding, but at the same point, when you can bring your players, like what I did, I brought our players there, and to show them the aspect of, hey, anybody can be an athlete, and somebody may have more God-given talent than somebody else. You know, we might never see a guy like LeBron James, or we might never see another Steph Curry. But it doesn't mean that because you're not that person that you can't be successful or appreciate being able to play sports. And to me, I viewed it as something where, for me, it grounded me a lot, and understanding just the small things in life, you know, that we take for granted are so important to some other people, such as just showering and being able to stand up out of your wheelchair that day. So I felt like it was really important for our players to see it. Eventually, I started building some relationships there. Was able to help out on more of a, you know, executive board role. But to be honest with you, it has given me a lot more, you know, learning ability and understanding myself more than I could ever give back, whether it's hours, whether it's money. I mean, you can never give back all the stuff and everything I take away when we leave the field. So it's a great place. Definitely recommended the events they run, whether it's a Halloween event, whether it's a Christmas event. They're so worth it, because you just feel like you're around the right place when you're there.
That's funny you said that too, about like the athletes. And I actually had a chance my junior year at Notre Dame to work with Special Olympics, and I'll never forget that. That was just to work with kids that were just so excited to be there. And at that time, a lot of kids in our key club were like, "Oh, we're just doing this to get out of class." And I'm like, "No, you should want to be there, because these kids really are looking at us to be leaders, and to, like, you know, take our time out of our day to be with them." And I have to say, I need to go to a Miracle League game, because it's right over by the house, and I just know that it's a great cause. And we had a neighbor that played, and he loved playing in Allentown, I think it was. So that was a great question, Derek. That was one of Derek. So I have to give an awesome question from Derek on that one.
And for those who want to check it out, it was the Miracle League of the Lehigh Valley. You can look it up online. Which brings us to our last formal question. As we talked about earlier, our first show of Time Out was to cover the Lehigh Valley High School baseball tournament, which still, Joe, is our most viewed episode ever. What was your biggest challenge with bringing the tournament together? Obviously, now we see that with COVID going on, which I just thought about, and I ended up rewatching the video. We used to call it Corona, which is kind of weird. Now we're always calling it COVID. Anyway, squirrel moment. But what was the biggest challenge bringing the tournament together with everything going on, and obviously the whole technical season kind of fell apart?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, COVID was the number one thing. So COVID was, you know, we were lucky because the timing that we chose was when, honestly, now looking from where we are today, where we were last April, it was really the best time where we were, you know, people were outside, numbers were lower, and we were able to actually do it. But I mean, in reality, COVID was number one. We also had like 35 mile per hour winds and a tropical storm on Tuesday in the middle of the week, which didn't help. And then the third part was on Wednesday of the tournament, Governor Wolf came out and said he's not supporting PIAA athletics. So it was kind of like a learning curve. But as we kind of talked about throughout the conversation tonight, it was the Lehigh Valley coming together for a better cause than what was for yourself. It had nothing to do with me. All I did was provide a platform where coaches could work together, players could come together. You know, we had players moving senior day trips and senior weekends and all that stuff. We had coaches taking time off of work to work on the fields. We had field crews coming out from people who I never met, who were staying at their fields until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to get their field ready for quote unquote me, but really for the players to be able to finish their tournament. And what I found was, and I'm grateful for, you know, I've had so many people call me, people I've never met, you know, saying thank you, grandparents, parents, just saying like without, you know, the tournament, we would have never had those senior moments and anything like that. But in reality, I think it just shows the Lehigh Valley, and we've talked about it, but the Lehigh Valley is such a special place that I feel like because of how much people in our area stay here, to grow. Pat Boyle, Mike Beddix, all, Andy Pitsillis, all the guys that we've talked about tonight, they are all guys who can be successful anywhere outside the Lehigh Valley. They don't Andy Pitsillis doesn't need Liberty to be a great baseball coach. At the same point though, it's all of them paying it forward to really what the kind of their ties. And that's what the tournament was all about. As much as my name was on things, it really should have just said, organizer, because that's all I really did. It was a lot of the work that went into it, and teams coming together, coaches coming together, Wilson and Notre Dame coaches in the same room at the same time, not talking about who's going to win or lose, but talking about how we can aid the other team to making sure they got enough batting practice or infield, outfield time. Like, to me, it took a lot away from quote unquote rivalries to we were all in this together. And to me, I do think, after talking to a lot of guys, they would love to see it happen again on an annual basis. I'm not sure exactly, how that's going to look, as the season. We don't really know what this is going to look like for a high school season. Hopefully it looks exactly the same as what we're accustomed to, but it was a ton of fun. It was an opportunity, I think, for the players to really have their abilities to showcase them for one final time, especially the seniors, which that meant the world to me just as a fan.
Well, yeah, that was one of my questions was, is there any chance you can call on the show right now and tell us we're going to have an annual tournament? But because that was something, that was that Joe and I had a great time at the tournament and the games we were able to go to, and just even seeing matchups that you don't normally see, we thought it was very fun to see, and we both had our scorebook, but annually we're not too sure. Maybe a fall thing, something like that.
That's what was discussed. So I love the weekend or the week that we picked because it's right before fall sports happen. So it's kind of like, do we want this to be the end of, and include seniors, maybe not include seniors as kind of a first look for what that next season is going to look like, which I think that's the kind of the model we're going to try to go to, is like, hey, let's give some of those freshmen who are now essentially going to be sophomores, give them a chance to really make an impact, so that it's really the first time we can cover what that next season is going to look like, kind of an up and coming, exciting type tournament where some of those guys, who might have played JV, but played a big role. And now some seniors have graduated, where it's like, hey, let's see what we have here on a varsity level. So I think that's what it's going to look like. I'm assuming it's going to probably be the same week, if not a fall thing. But again, it just right now it's navigating, COVID and navigating, what will be safe. Do we wait for, this vaccine to hit, everybody? Do we, when's that going to be? Following some school protocols, but I've had a couple calls already saying, hey, it's 2021. So what are we doing? So, I definitely think there's an avenue for it. I think it's needed. For me, if I'm part of it, I would certainly love to, do it again. And I think it certainly should be something that is done every year. That's for sure.
Great idea.
Now,
it works so well too. I was happy to just be a little part of it, to announce those games. It was just fun.
We will say now, nothing's absolutely perfect, right? So is there anything, if you do get the chance again, that you might do a little differently as compared to the first time?
Yeah, I looking back at it, I think it's really hard in the landscape of where some high school programs are to sit there and have 32 different teams in a playoff where it was just almost known that some teams were just not going to be able to compete with others, right? I mean, and taking nothing away from, some schools, but I think at that point, Moravian Academy was one of the schools where they were supposed to be in it. Right before the event, they dropped out. We were able to get Phillipsburg in it. So I think, what would be great is if we can start setting it up as a 16-team event where for those schools who really want to do it. I think this year, because there was no baseball, you had schools that kind of felt like, hey, if we don't accept, maybe we're going to be viewed at by our parents or our players in some way where I don't know if it needs to be, every team in the Lehigh Valley if they don't really want to be there. Like, I mean, there was times where we were like calling, hey, you are going to show up tomorrow, right? Like, we have to make sure you're going to be there. Where, at this point for me, it's like, hey, we want to put the best product and really make it fun for those who want to be there. So I think we would still open it up to anybody, but I think, if the high school season does get played, you might not see every team say yes, just because of, limitations. It was the one thing I'll say, I don't really want to do it differently, but I would love to play at some high school fields. We were not able to do that because of COVID. So like the high schools really didn't allow us to play there. So we had to play, which I love the fields we played at. But, one of the things I really would love is, hey, if Notre Dame plays Easton, at Notre Dame or at Easton, it should be at one of those fields. You know what I mean? Like for me, it really should be there, and it was great. We saw Bangor play Penargil, but it was in Palmer Township. Like, that needs to be up in that area where we can literally, people from the community need to be at a game like that. So, that's just some of the thoughts that we had in the past where, it changes everything when we can be able to use some high school fields, really showcase the games, set them up sporadically, because then more people in the community can enjoy them rather than we were in, one venue or something like that. So,
yeah. Well, it was a great time. You did a great job. We talked about it on the first show, but I'm sure many people still are thankful that you were able to put that together. Get some kids, some seniors, some moments that they can remember. Well, we don't have a ton of time, but we are a sports show here, so we have to focus on what are some of your favorite sports teams, Dan, and how about did you get to becoming a fan of those teams? Maybe try to keep it to the for main sports, but if you're a main college fan too, go ahead for it.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm all over the map. I'm not your traditional, hey, I'm a Philly quote sports fan. I root for Philly sports. Is not who I am. I've learned. I like to kind of create my own path. My parents were not Orioles fans. I'm an Orioles fan. So it started at an early age. I seem to be very, then it happened with Cal Ripken Jr. But in reality, even to this day, I find myself really following players and people who then it was like, hey, I can, take some things from their careers. Now it's, who would me as a parent, take off the fan hat, who would I want my son, to watch? And, at the end of the day, there's some great athletes, but do they stand for the same morals that I would want my son to do so as well? So, a lot of there's a lot of guys who, Grayson's 2.5 years old, and he'll hear me talking about Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic and certain guys, because I think they're just good human beings. They're great in the community. They're guys who, they're great players, but also I think that kind of the parent side, for me, created a lot of sports fans on my day-to-day. But, I love the Indianapolis Colts in football. I told Joe this story real quick. I was always an Eagles fan. My brother has season tickets. I'd go to games with him all the time. And I realized I don't fit in to be a Philly sports fan. It's not, I'm just not a good Philly sports fan. I'm not one who's going to type on social media how much I like or don't like, or who I think should be this or that. It's just not who I am. So, at the end of the day, I enjoyed my time as an Eagles fan. I did get off the boat before they won the Super Bowl. So, that was a shot kind of, but in reality, when I was going out to the Indy 500, I started going on tours of Lucas Oil Stadium and met some people there. I was like, man, like this is totally different than the Philly vibe. This is more my speed. So Andrew Luck got drafted. He was my favorite quarterback in college at that time because he was awesome. So started following his career and I've just been following them. I like them. I enjoy watching them play. So, and I'm still tight with my Oklahoma City Thunder. I love Russell Westbrook. He's my favorite athlete. I know everybody has their own, issues with him, the way he plays. I love watching him play. I'll watch the Wizards just to watch him play now. I watched the Rockets last year just to watch him play. I don't think you can ever watch somebody who plays with 150% effort, whether he yells, whether he screams, whether whatnot. At the end of the day, he cares as much as anybody else. And to me, it's just something that I can respect. I respect that more than, highlight plays. So
Sure.
that's where it is.
So you mentioned Cal Ripken Jr. Was he growing up? Was he the guy who you idolized?
He's the reason I'm a baseball fan, to be honest with you. It's the way he played the game, the way he looked at the game, the way he can teach the game. I've met him a bunch of times, being able to coach travel baseball as well. They have a facility in Aberdeen.
Yes.
We won some things down there. I was able to throw at a home run derby with him watching. I was probably as nervous as can be. And and we chatted afterwards for a little bit. But honestly, just as a human being, I learned a lot and listening to the way he coaches and the way he handles things. I just thought it was a cool role model. Still a fan. I still wish he would own the Orioles to this day.
You called him affectionately Cal usually. You didn't even use Ripken. You just said Cal. Like
Exactly.
That's what you would say. That was true.
He was on our show previously, not physically, but talking about the most unbreakable records, and I would say Cal Ripken is probably one that's going to be up top.
I think
for
so.
Quite a long time.
Yeah, I think so.
But well, before you go, we'll get your thoughts on the NFC or the NFL playoffs that are going on right now. Obviously, so your Colts got knocked out in the first round. I did pick them for the record, right, Joe? But
I remember
about
picking
that
against the Bills.
What are do you have a team who you're rooting for to win it? Who do you think is going to end up winning the Super Bowl now that we're down to 4 teams?
So on Friday, I was talking to Joe. We were talking about, what we were doing and with the show. And I said to him, I might put my foot in my mouth, but I think the AFC is Kansas City, which, I guess we have to wait and see what happens with Mahomes. And I would feel very differently if Mahomes is not playing. But I'll say, if Mahomes is playing and until somebody, he's 25-1 as a starter in the last 2 years. So, I mean, he's 25-1. So, I think, they have the perfect setup. I think the Bills are a really good team. I think Josh Allen is really, really good. He's taken huge steps, but I think the Chiefs win if Mahomes plays. And I said to Joe before on Friday, I said, I think it ends up being Mahomes versus Brady. And the Packers are playing at an all-time high level. They look the part. I'm rooting for Tom Brady. Anybody who knows me knows I love Tom Brady. I love greatness. I'll say it. I love the opportunity to turn on the TV at age 33 and be able to say Tom Brady's on week after week. Because in 25 years, when people are like, this guy won 6 or 7 Super Bowls, I'm like, yeah, I got to watch him every week, and he was great all the time. And people, I don't feel like people respect that. It's why I watch LeBron. Like, he might not be the greatest basketball player of all time. There's arguments on every side. But to me, he's the greatest basketball player of our generation, one of the top 2 or 3 of all time, whenever anybody looks back. So why not take the opportunity to watch him play? Like, to me, I'll take it all day long. So I love Brady. I hope they win. I think that's the route to go. Mahomes and Brady. I think it's in Tampa Bay, right?
Tampa.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That's a Brady story.
Yeah. Storyline.
Well, the video will be out there, so everyone's gonna know moving forward what your picks were. So hopefully there's
so Bills Packers, yeah.
Well, I think that'll do it for us. Dan, it was a pleasure having you on. We had a lot of fun talking to you. You've done a lot in your very young life, so I hope you have a lot more to give, and you're doing some great things. So we appreciate you having you on, and maybe we'll have you on again down the line.
I'd love to. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Joe, as always, any last thoughts?
Well, Dan, it was definitely fun to reminisce about the ND days and even your coaching career. As like Derek said, it's been impressive even to know you for so long, but to see how you have been able to mentor young kids and just the Rising Stars program. When I heard about that a couple years ago, I thought this is awesome. And see what you do at the high school baseball tournament was also awesome. And always proud to call you my cousin. So thank you for coming on. And we'll have you on for baseball talk. I think that will be a done deal. Hopefully, coming up in the next couple of months, we'll bring you back.
Great.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. The feelings are mutual, cousin Joe.
Thank you, buddy.
So for those that want to check out the video, obviously we're going to be putting this up on our Facebook page. We're on YouTube. We're on all podcast platforms. Feel free to check us out and check out our old interview and the rest of our videos. They're all there, all the way back to Lehigh Valley Baseball in episode 1 and the recap of that tournament from last summer. But as always, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us here at Timeout. Stay safe and take care.